you for joining us for the Holiday Stress and Wellness webinar. My name is Tori Fries, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Family Institute at Northwestern University, where we, through research, education, and therapy, practice relationship-based behavioral health care and are committed to strengthening and healing children, adolescents, families, and individuals from all walks of life. Today's panel discussion is led by Shirley Khong and Stephanie Bowman. Shirley Khong is a licensed professional counselor. Throughout her professional career, she has worked with children, adolescents, adults, couples, and families in a variety of settings. She finds immense joy when she helps to empower her clients to develop and become more aware of their triggers, needs, and wants. Stephanie Bowman is a licensed professional counselor. She enjoys working with adults and couples, those who have experienced childhood trauma, and marginalized populations. She uses a trauma-informed approach based in Adlerian and psychodynamic counseling theories. So to start us off, Shirley is going to join us in a quick mindfulness exercise.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the holiday webinar series, where we will hopefully teach you some skills and have a great discussion as we navigate through the holidays. So if you can, and please, if you're not driving, don't do this. You can always do it afterwards. We're going to just do a really quick body scan just to kind of check in and ground us into the space and conversation today. So if you'd like, you can either close your eyes if you feel comfortable and preferably not driving, or you can have a soft focus in front of you. And what I want us to all do is just imagine that there's a light that starts at the top of our head and it'll go down our entire bodies, down to the tips of our toes. So just what I want us to do is just to notice where and if you feel any areas of tension. If you do, breathe into those areas, let it go as best as you can. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And the light is not judging, it's not critical, it's just to help us notice. Okay, so the light starts at the top of our head, going down our cheeks, jaw, neck, shoulders, down our arms, all the way down to our fingertips, down our chest, our backs, our torso, down our hips, thighs, knees, calves, and then out through your toes. So just take a moment or two to just notice. And you can open your eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Shirley. That was great. I'm feeling all relaxed. Now let's get into today's discussion topic. So what are some common stressors that people may experience during the holiday season?
Okay, so hi. Thank you so much, Shirley, for that. I was feeling relaxed. And actually, as that was happening, there's like this siren that's going off. There's like a test siren going off. And I'm feeling like that's what people feel like around the holidays, where they're trying to relax. They're trying to really just be mindful and think about themselves and their own wellness, or at the same time, there's just so much swirling around them. And so it's hard to really decipher, okay, at what point do I need to take care of myself? And at what point do I need to think about my family and focus on them? And there's like a lot of competing interests going on. So there's a lot of really heightened emotion and a lot of confusion. So I was actually reading through some of the questions that people submitted, and I saw some really, really prominent themes come out. There's just a lot of confusion about changing traditions, competing traditions, overwhelming feelings in general, loneliness, grief and estrangement, family issues with regards to, maybe toxic family members or really challenging family situations is a huge one. Financial stress and just overall expectation management. So those are definitely some of the things that I saw in the questions that were submitted for sure. How about you, Shirley?
I think a lot of the ones that you already mentioned, I completely agree with. And I think looking at the holiday season, finances can be pretty stressful too, with like, sometimes you want to find the perfect gift, or you want to make sure that you're not going over budget or under budget. So we can definitely talk more about that and other questions that people have too.
For sure. And just validating all of the competing emotions and feelings that are going on and swirling around you, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So how can individuals navigate and cope with family dynamics that may contribute to stress during the holidays? Are there communication strategies or boundary setting techniques that can be particularly helpful?
Yeah, so I think Stephanie and I also had we wanted to give you guys a little role play example of what that could possibly look like.
Yeah, for sure. So boundary setting is huge, right? So when you have your own ideas of kind of what you want to talk about or say, or what you want to share or not share, and taking care of yourself versus what others expect or want out of you or expect you to say or not say around the holidays. We came up with this role play where I don't know, do you want to kind of introduce the scenario and we'll take it from here. So we're demonstrating boundary setting, what that might look like in conversations with relatives.
Mm-hmm.
So really boundaries are something that people feel initially are selfish things, but really they're for the benefit of not only yourself but other people, because you're teaching them how to treat you, right? And so to see boundaries as something that you do for yourself, but that also is something that is helpful to everyone, is really important. And so some of the things that I've learned about boundaries are to be able to be confident and firm and state what you need in that moment. And something that we'll demonstrate here is to also then, request a simple consequence if that boundary is not fulfilled. So anyway, so do you want to set the scene, Shirley?
Sure,
Yeah.
I can definitely do that. So just imagine you're at this holiday party with family and your mom or a parent comes up to you and is like very insistent and excuse me, like asking you a million questions. Hey, these are like, I'm concerned about this. Like, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? What's coming up for you both? So we'll do that. And then the next is also within that same holiday family gathering where, you might have a cousin or another family member who comes up and really is insistent on talking about like politics, and maybe you're not in the right mind space or have the bandwidth to talk about that. So we'll kind of set the scene, and in the first scene, I will be the insistent mom who's asking a million and one questions. So whenever you're ready, Stephanie, and
I'm ready. So Shirley is my mom and I'm Stephanie. We'll just say that's me in this in this scene.
Mhm.
And mom pulls me aside into the kitchen and scene.
Yes. Hi, Steph. So it's good to see you again. I'm glad
Hey,
you were able to
Mom.
make it this year.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. I love being here at our home.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to ask a couple questions, hon. Like, just I'm just really curious. Like, are you and Josh like, are you guys thinking about getting married anytime soon?
Oh gosh, Mom, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate that. Um, you know what? I'm feeling like, I know you're concerned about me and Josh, and right now I'm just not feeling very comfortable talking about that. Um, do you think we could table this discussion to another time?
But when are you thinking about it? Because it's like near the end of the year, and you guys aren't getting any younger. You're actually getting a little bit older now. And if you guys want kids, which would be so nice, because I know like the girls down the street, like they have grandkids. So when are you guys thinking about doing this? Because like it would be really great for the family to get together and everything.
No, Mom, I love you, and I know you love me and are concerned about me and my future, and I appreciate that. And I'm just not interested in talking about this right now. Could we talk about it some other time?
But like, when do you want to talk about it? Because like everybody's here, and I just thought that we could have an announcement with all the family members because we don't really get to do this all the time.
Mom, I know I understand where you're coming from. And if we continue to talk about it right now, I'm going to have to leave the kitchen. Um,
Okay, well, that's fine. Then we'll just talk next time
okay.
and scene.
Okay. So so what we did there was, obviously Shirley was really pushing me. She was really pushing my boundaries, right? And so what I needed to do was really not only empathize with her and where she was coming from, because that kind of will soften up the conversation, but to also stay firm at the same time is really important, right? Even when mom is pushing, 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 it helps to start with some empathy, some understanding, but also a real firmness, right? So it's this combination of, I understand you, Mom. I love you, Mom. And also, I'm holding firm to my boundary. Can we do this some other time? And then we also set a consequence if it continued. I'm going to have to leave the kitchen, right? If we continue to have this conversation. And to be able to say that with love and calmness and empathy all at the same time is a real challenge, right? And it will be a very heightened moment because it can be uh, really upsetting to hear some of the things that our mom is trying to ask you. What's your take on it, Shirley?
I mean, I'm gonna try and keep those things in mind when I'm on the other side of that.
All right. Sometimes taking a deep breath and maybe counting backwards from 5 before you respond is also another thing that you can do when you are feeling really emotionally charged and overwhelmed and flooded with emotions in those moments.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All
So
right. So
let's want to do okay. I want to do the next
okay.
one. Okay.
So you just walked out of the kitchen from this very heated conversation with your mom. And so we're going to transition into the living room. And you have a cousin of yours, for example, who comes up and they want to talk about politics. And this time I am the daughter who's walking in, and my cousin, Stephanie, who will be named Monica in this scene, she'll come up to me and we have this conversation.
So wait, you're Shirley, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, Shirley. Good to see you.
Hi, Monica. How's it going?
Happy holidays. It's good to have you here.
I know. I'm glad to see you this year. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
Yeah. So hey, did you see that recent debate? The one with all the characters there?
Which debate are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that debate, the one with that one party debate, the primaries.
Mm, I did watch it. Did you?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot to say about it. And I want
I
to
bet
talk
you
to you
do.
about it because I know I don't know. I just want to get your take on it. And I know you and I haven't always agreed on in the past about our politics. So yeah, just waiting to talk to you about that one. I tell you. You think your
No,
guy's gonna win?
Monica, I'm so glad to see you. And I think that with the holidays, as much as I enjoy our conversations and maybe differing of politics, it might be really helpful if we just focused on, talking about other things.
Come on, Shirley. Don't be a buzzkill. You know you want to talk about this.
I mean, I would love to talk about this, just maybe not at this time, because one, it might get a little bit heated, and I would rather talk to you about your life and whatever else is going on.
But this is my life. I mean, this is a big part of our lives. This is a big part of everyone's lives, this upcoming election. I tell you what.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
I
this
totally
is
get that. I totally get that. And I think that if you continue to push and like push me into a corner, I don't really want to have this fight with you. So please be respectful of my boundaries when I say I don't really want to talk about this right now, but I'll talk to you like about anything else.
okay. All right. Whatever you say. Okay.
And
See. So yeah. Um, so what do you think? How is that like being on the other side of it?
I think it's really different because sometimes it's hard to come up with the words or the phrases of what you want to say. Um, and honestly, I didn't feel like I was like being pushed. I was like, oh, okay, like she's okay. She's gonna let it go. She's not gonna be as pushy.
Yeah, for sure.
But
So
I
yeah,
do
I mean,
agree
I
with
think
you. Yeah.
right. It's just depends on the circumstance, right? So, but
Hmm.
yeah, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, but politics can be pretty sensitive, especially during the holidays. And if there's any consolation, being able to respect those boundaries in ourselves when we say no, we don't want to talk about this, you can leave the situation. I know I didn't mention this, which is like if you continue to say X, Y, and Z, I will leave this conversation or I will not be a part of this right now. So you can
Or
be a lot more firmer in
yeah.
those boundary settings.
Yeah, or even, if you have a really pushy, like a way more pushy person, just to say like, hey, like that's my role for this evening, or that's my role for today. You know what? I made a new rule for myself, and it's to not talk politics. But
Yeah.
I love you, and I love what Shirley said about talking about anything else in your life, or even asking a question about, so what's going on with your favorite football team or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that was great. Thank you both. That was really helpful, honestly. So then I'll go ahead and move on to our next discussion topic. So, how do you recommend striking a balance between festive celebrations and self care?
So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, the holidays can have so much hustle and bustle, and there might be, some vices that we use and that could be helpful. Um, and I think a couple of things could be, making sure that you are, I mean, obviously, you're probably going to be shaking up your routine. So anything that you're eating or however you're sleeping or not sleeping as much, you might be spending more than usual. So it's really important to make sure that you focus on those primary um, concerns that pertain to setting time for yourself. Like if it's doing an activity that you enjoy, um, making time to get adequate sleep. So if you need 8 hours, making sure that you're building in the 8 hours of your evening to get enough sleep so that you can be refreshed for the morning. And also maybe making a plan the day of, like, okay, I have these number of things that I need to do, and I'm gonna stick to it. And maybe I'll do, instead of 10 things on my list, I'm gonna do maybe three. And if I can get through those three things, then I can enjoy myself, and I can also feel a little bit more productive. So anything that you'd want to add to that, Stephanie?
No, I love that. I love all that. I love the idea of being prepared, right? Planning ahead, right? Because, let's face it, in terms of the family we're talking about, in terms of the adjustments to schedules and all the things that you were talking about and travel and everything else. I think especially with regards to these family dynamics too, let's just face it, the reason why we're having these heightened emotions is because we know what's coming, right? We know, we can sort of predict, okay, my cousin's going to ask me about politics, my mom's going to ask me when I'm going to get married, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, because it's happened every other year, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it and expect anything different, right? So because I know what's going to happen, I can build in time for myself and be prepared, think ahead of time, like, okay, what will I do when my cousin Monica asks me about the debate? What will I do when mom does this? Okay, so I need to say, here's what I'll say, even rehearsing what you're going to say. And then, yeah, building in time, especially when you're traveling, I think, to other places, or even when you don't even have to travel that far, but you have to visit someone else, to really, make time for you and carve out as part of that trip or part of that visit, a time where you can go visit your, I don't know, favorite park, or, if you have to stay somewhere, maybe you change things up a little bit and you don't stay in mom's basement. You stay at an Airbnb, or you stay at a hotel, and you take that time to treat yourself, so that when you're dreading these really challenging interactions, you're also at the same time able to look forward to a break from that, and able to plan that ahead of time, to where you're not overwhelmed and there's something that makes you happy and brings you joy as part of all of that joy and stress that comes with the holidays.
Yes. Everything that Stephanie said, definitely try to build in some of that time so that you can feel that you're taking care of yourself, because it's a really difficult time for a lot of people, but it also can be a very joyous and memorable experience too.
Great, thank you. Again, I think that's a really great suggestion, even just getting some fresh air if you need a moment to yourself. I think that's really nice, so thank you. So our next question, what advice do you have for those who are grieving this holiday season? Whether it be from the loss of a loved one or dealing with family estrangement, what would you recommend?
I think in this situation, it's broken up into maybe two different categories. So the first one would probably be like if you are grieving a loved one who's no longer here, and then family estrangement. So how I would want to have us celebrate, or as we're grieving this time when the family member is no longer with us, I think finding ways to honor their memory. Maybe it's setting a place setting for them at the table, or it's having their picture up with you. I think, or, maybe planting something, bringing like a plant that can be brought into your home, or, planting a seed, something so that and it doesn't have to be any of those things. I think the main focus is to make sure that it feels honorable and memorable for you and for your experience, because let's face it, there's going to be a lot of difficult moments, when we remember like, oh, they're not here anymore, or like, I wish I had more of these moments with them. And being able to maybe recreating those memories or creating new ones in whatever way that's helpful and honors their memory. That's what I would say. What about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, for sure. I think, too, in addition to everything you just said, I agree with, those are lovely, lovely suggestions. And, sometimes people feel like, if they're afraid to talk about their loved one who's passed. And so it can be a very vulnerable and emotional thing to do, but to really be open about how you're feeling, not only with yourself, but with people that, you know, who knew your loved one as well, your other loved ones who can share in that sentiment and that feeling of missing them, and talking openly about them and what they meant to you, and who they were, and how much you do miss them, can be, even though it's a hard thing to do, can be a relief for you and a release for you. And also just monitoring your emotions about it. I think, you know, paying attention to, you know, your own grieving process, which is so complicated, and giving yourself some grace, and taking a moment to reflect when you need to, and being patient and loving to yourself, I think is really important, because, you know, with loss, there's always a lot of complexity, regardless of how much time has passed. You know, there's feelings of a sentimentality, but there can also be some complicating feelings in there, you know, and so giving yourself permission to feel all the things that you need to feel about it is super important.
And respecting the silence too. Sometimes you don't have to fill up the silence. That can be quite difficult for myself included. And Stephanie, what would you say about like family estrangement?
Yeah, family estrangement is oh my goodness, it's so it's such a tough topic, and it's so real for so many people. I think we tend to think that that's the exception to the rule, but the percentage of people who have very close loved ones who are estranged from them is very, very high. And then in the holidays, it all comes into front and center and magnified, you know, not only because there is so many societal expectations about, you know, being with your close family and being with loved ones, and who those loved ones are, that you know, even from your own family, I mean, depending on the situation, right? And I think, you know, there were some questions that I saw submitted about being alone on holidays and normalizing that. If you have a family that is toxic to you, and it's painful to be near and around them, to be able to take that time for you, maybe go sit on a beach, go get a cabin or Airbnb somewhere, or even if you're at home, to make that alone time really special for you, and to care for you in the way that you aren't cared for by those people who should have cared for you. Another idea is to reach out to friends, for sure. Reach out to your chosen family, those people that bring you joy, that care about you, that want to know about you and your life, and are invested in your well-being. And to spend as much time with those people you choose to be your family is also something that I think people are afraid to do, but so many people love to host people who are not a member of their immediate family for the holidays. They are so can be so giving, and those holidays that are spent with people who you enjoy being around can be some of the best holidays you'll ever have. So to know that you're not alone, and to reach out is important. Or, you know, if you're feeling like you need that time alone, and to tell yourself that's okay too, and to take care of you in the best way that you can. So yeah, that's what I would say in response to the estrangement question.
That's really great. Thank you. It's a challenging topic, and so I think you both had some really great suggestions. Well, our next question here: can you speak speak to the pros and cons of maintaining annual holiday traditions versus alternating plans each year to try and fairly distribute time with loved ones?
Great question. Great question. And I think, Stephanie, you had already started to talk about this question in the previous one.
Yeah.
If you look at like what are annual holiday traditions, it can be, you buy a tree or you light a candle or you decorate, whatever that looks like. And I think for what you mentioned earlier, Stephanie, of, making sure when you're going out of town to visit family, maybe are alternating with different family members, or like booking like a vacation within the family visit. And maybe even taking a nap might be really nice to do. Like, hey, I'm gonna, take a nap. I'm gonna go to the hotel, or I'm gonna go to the Airbnb. And planning something fun for yourself.
There's always room for new traditions too, right? And so, maybe our old tradition wasn't making us happy anymore. And so, maybe we limit our time, with what doesn't make us happy as much, and carve out time where, hey, maybe a new tradition is to fly to Florida and sit on a beach. Or, our new tradition is to go see a movie on Christmas Day. And then that is something that brings us more joy. But then also, traditions are important to people that, in terms of honoring our loved ones, and making their favorite meals and things can be part of a new tradition. So it doesn't have to be like a complete departure from old traditions, but can be old tradition plus, right? And so finding ways to make it your own and to own it, I think is a big deal, because otherwise it just feels forced and like you're going through the motions and not enjoying yourself. And you should really focus more on enjoyment of yourself and your family, and or just yourself, if that is the case.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Thank you. So we have one more discussion topic, and then we can begin the audience Q&A. So can you provide some practical tips for maintaining emotional well-being during the holidays? Are there specific mindfulness or relaxation techniques that you recommend for managing stress?
I loved what Shirley started off with at the beginning, that the body scan and taking time to do that. And there are a lot of different mindfulness techniques out there. You can get several apps that are available for guiding you through some of the things, just like Shirley did to start us off today. Calm is a good one. I highly recommend that one. And that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 I was talking about. Whenever you start to feel, emotions sort of taking over and flooding you, right? To be able to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and reset is super helpful. In addition to all those things, mindfulness can look like something as simple as taking a moment to smell the smells in the air that are, holiday spices, and taking time to enjoy all the sights and sounds and listening to music. It can be looking at lights and just sort of getting lost in the moment throughout the day. So I think that we think mindfulness has to be a certain time where we set aside and we meditate and we go through certain techniques, but it can look like just taking a walk and looking at nature and, staring out at the lake if you need to. It can look like smelling cookies, and it doesn't have to be something that is we need an hour to do, or we need silence to do, right? And so taking those moments and really taking in through all of your senses, the world around us is really what mindfulness is all about. And really allowing yourself to do that and to enjoy, and to, when you find yourself getting lost in your head and your own thoughts, to really pull yourself into the present is something that is super helpful. If you can swing it, right? Even if it's just once a day or once a week, for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes the simpler things can be quite challenging. Like if you don't have a minute to take away, you know, noticing what's around you. Maybe what are some of the colors or shapes or smells that we see, and what do we feel on our bodies? Like sometimes we can be so much in our heads that we don't really check in, like, where am I? Like, have I used the bathroom? Have I had any water today? Um, have I had anything to eat? Because, sometimes it's so stressful and you're running around picking up these things and doing all of these activities. It's hard to find a moment. And other things that I would add for mindfulness too, that Stephanie had mentioned, mindfully eating, right? We eat and have this celebratory feast during the holidays, or that's kind of the expectation. Um, and taking a moment to just appreciate what you're eating, looking at it, smelling it, really being very present when you're tasting the food, and you're not just scarfing it down. You're just, okay, I can, if I'm having spaghetti and meatballs, for example, like I can taste the tomato, I can taste the garlic, I can taste, the different herbs and like the texture of the noodle, being immersed in those moments can be very mindful as well. You don't have to just sit in a quiet room and be like, I just need it to be quiet. That's nice, and it's really helpful, but that's not always possible.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think those are some really practical ideas. As you mentioned, everybody might not have the time to go in a dark room and sit with their thoughts. So I think those are both, thank you both for your recommendations. Well, at this point, we're going to go into audience Q&A. So thank you both again, Shirley and Stephanie, for your thoughtful responses to today's conversation topics. So our first question that came in: how can you manage other people's expectations of you, such as your boss, when you have less energy and more stress during this time?
Great question. Great question. I gotta think about that for a little bit.
Expectations as from your boss when you have less energy, managing their expectations. Yeah. Huh. Well, if I'm able to jump in to,
No, of
I
course.
think,
No, I'm still thinking about how I
yeah.
would, yeah.
Yeah, I think, for sure. So, you would hope that people who are your managers are understanding that this is kind of a slower time. If they're being very demanding, I wonder if having, I guess, a conversation about their expectations specifically, so it doesn't sort of get beyond what you can manage or handle. So say, okay, what exactly do I need to get done, and when exactly is it due, and can I extend that deadline in some way, shape, or form, or what is necessary and what takes precedence and what is not as necessary, and we can kind of put to the back burner or put till the new year if we need to. Just really getting a sense from your boss about what those things are, and making that list, right? And numbering it, even like, oh, here's the first thing I need to get done, and then saying, like, listen, I'll be taking some time off, or I'll be a little bit, I'll be taking some time for me, and considering all of that, I want you to know that here's what I can do and here's what I would like to put to table until the future. That's what I was thinking, maybe just kind of being very explicit about all of that so that you can manage your own like question marks about all of it, all the unknowns of, what does the boss want me to do and need me to do versus, what can I accomplish and, reasonably while taking care of myself and being the best employee and best everything else in my life that I have to be.
Yes, yes. You actually sparked my memory of a conversation I had with someone too, where we focused on tasks that are absolutely urgent. Like I'm taking this from like an ER nurse or ER doctor, where the doctor has like red, yellow, green, and black. And so the red tasks are things that are super urgent. I need to do it and address it right away. So I can't push it off. Yellow things are like, I can push it off. I don't really need to focus on it right now. Maybe after I'm done with the tasks that are in red, then I'll focus on that. And then the green are things that I'm like, it's not a huge emergency. I will come back to them when I'm ready. And then black are things where you're just like, it's completely out of your control and you really cannot do and address those things because it's out of your hands and you don't really you just can't do it anymore. Another thing that I would say is have a conversation with your boss too, of maybe going into the new year, setting up that expectation of like, okay, what is the expectation for this month or this quarter or these quarters, so that we can have an outline of what the year looks like, rather than, oh my God, end of the year, everybody's just like frazzled and we're burnt out and we're exhausted. How do we make it a little bit more manageable so that the expectations, as Stephanie mentioned, they are addressed and also we know what we're responsible for so that we can plan accordingly.
Yeah. All these expectations, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
work, family, self-care, all these things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's great. Prioritization seems like a really helpful way to kind of process those stressors. So I think that's really helpful. Thank you both. So our next question we have, somebody asked, my mom is estranged from her family, so she puts a lot of undue pressure on me to fill her cup. Is there anything you might suggest for me to keep my own boundaries while still taking care of her?
And it's
I
so
think that
tough.
goes into that question we talked about earlier with boundaries. It's really hard when you have family members, again, when we talk about family estrangement, especially during the holidays, and then add to that you being responsible for taking care of your parent, which the roles should be switched. And I know a lot of people, it's really difficult to create that space and that time away when things feel like I have to take care of other people. And I always go to this example of, when we get on planes, for example, right? The first thing that they say, obviously, is put on our seatbelts. But then the other things would be like, if there's any emergency and the oxygen mask falls, we put on our mask first. And then we put it on for other people, especially if they're not able to, especially like young kids or, elders. So why not take that same analogy to our own lives? Why is it seen to be for us that it's selfish that we take care of ourselves, or it's not okay for us to say no when we really need to? Because even in the previous question, if there's so much stress and expectation from other people, there's not much room or space for us. So I always tell people, like, cut a piece of that cake for yourself first and then give it to everyone else, because it's real quick. If that cake is really good, people will take it all. And it's important to build that time for ourselves so that we feel rejuvenated during this time, because it's quite a lot, as we've been talking about so far.
Yeah, this is some good metaphors. I love that. There's this really cool concept that's really related. called separation of tasks. It's an Adlerian concept. And so whenever you're doing something, to ask yourself, who am I doing this for? What's my motivation here? Am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for someone else? And if I'm doing it for someone else, kind of what are my limits, right? Where I have to sort of flip back to, knowing what's best for me as well. And so balancing, your mom's, understandably wanting to care for her and to be there for her and to provide love and support and companionship to her during the time where she is cut off from everyone else is so important. And then also when it gets to be where mom maybe potentially, and I don't know the dynamics here, but I sometimes, it gets to be where it's kind of going to be all about mom, right? And so, to not feel responsible, I think, for her emotions is a challenge, but so necessary. So part of the separation and task is to say, okay, I'm going to give everything, that I want to give in terms of my emotional capacity to support her. And then beyond a certain point, if I'm feeling that, I'm needing space for myself, or I'm needing to do something different, to separate that, to say, like, what mom thinks or feels about me taking time for myself or doing something other than what she wishes is her task, right? But my task is to support her in the way that I know how, and give what I can. And then beyond that, to take space for me is my task, and to focus on, my own wellness is my task, and mom's response to that is her task. And so I'm not going to be responsible for her feelings or emotions about it.
Well, that makes sense. And so we received a very similar question, but flipped a little bit. Somebody asked if you have any recommendations for dealing with a toxic parent who is very persistent about seeing you and having you cater to their needs over the holidays when you're trying to move towards moving to no contact with a family unit that's dysfunctional.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, setting very, very, very rigid boundaries, especially if you're moving towards kind of, and I'd like to know, obviously we don't know the specifics of what's going on there in terms of moving towards no contact, but if it's very abusive and damaging, which it sounds like it is, that they're saying they're narcissistic and take over, and you're feeling abused by that relationship, to be able to validate your need and desire to care for you and to not be abused is important. And then in so doing, I mean, if you must see them, to find, sometimes it helps people to find very specific circumstances where they can sort of tolerate these people, where they can sort of be separated out from them, where maybe there's a lot of people there, and they say hello. They maybe set an hour or two deadline where, I have to be somewhere else in an hour, or I have to be somewhere else in 2 hours. And I really have to go. I'm leaving at 5 o'clock. I will have dinner with you. And at 5 o'clock, I have another appointment, or I have another place to be. Right. And so setting very specific time boundaries, or even like very specific, like I was saying, if there's to make sure there's other people there to like buffer you, is sometimes helpful. And then also, like, if you can play a board game or something, even, or just have a specific focus to the time you spend with them, to where they don't really have room to come at you in a way that you would not.
They might in the game, though.
Say that again.
I said they might in the game if like your family gets pretty competitive
That's
during
true.
holiday
That's true.
season. Like, oh, like I beat you last year, I'm gonna beat you again this year.
Or
Like,
something, but I mean, you know what I mean? So having that a very specific time limit and a very specific focus.
agreed,
Right.
agreed.
That's great.
And also not feeling like you have to explain yourself too. Like if you're like, hey, I'm not ready to talk about this right now. Please respect my boundary. And again, I think as we talked about earlier, if they continue to push, you can say things like, if you continue to talk about these things, I'm gonna leave the room, or I don't want to have this conversation anymore. So setting those limits, knowing your limits of when your energy levels are like, oh, I'm checking in with myself, I'm starting to feel very anxious or very upset and disrespected, and that's okay for me to feel these things. And it is also okay for me to say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea if I continue to stay. I'm going to take myself home and maybe get some rest, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, or I'll see you guys in a couple days, whatever that looks like for you. I think that, I mean, setting those limits for yourself and knowing when those limits are getting really close would be really
Yeah.
an ideal situation.
And have you heard of the gray rock method?
No, what is that?
So sometimes with people who are, say you are playing that board game and you're setting this very specific focus, a very specific time limit, and mom is really getting to you and she's really, kind of firing at you toxically. To really not respond in an emotional way and to go gray rock, so your face goes gray rock, and to not give that person the response that they're looking for. And usually that's anger.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to
Mm-hmm.
just really, and this takes a lot of control and a lot of practice, but to just be unresponsive to those kinds of abusive remarks is super helpful, and to not get pulled into the drama. And that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's called the
because
gray rock method.
and people, especially if they know that's how you're going to respond out of anger, oh, they're going to push you and push you and
Oh
push you.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So being aware of when that's happening. Okay, I'm feeling really angry, and I'm gonna maybe take some air. I'm gonna get some water. I'm gonna hydrate myself, or I'm gonna leave, and that's okay.
Yeah. And they're going to have the response they're going to have. And so let them. I love those two words. Let them have that
Yes.
response.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's really helpful advice. Thank you. So our next question, do you have any advice on how to handle first-time major financial challenges during the holidays? My family and I suffered extreme financial loss this year. We're all struggling mentally, emotionally, and physically because of it, but my mom is struggling in a different way, not being able to provide, host, socialize, and do gifts like we always do. I try to help and encourage her to practice gratitude for what we still have, but she seems to only focus on the negative. Any advice?
That's a really great question. Really, really great question, and I'm really sorry about the financial and um, emotional and mental difficulties that you and your family experienced this year. I think this goes back to the earlier question when we talked about grief and loss. Sometimes grief doesn't just have to be losing somebody permanent or family estrangement. It can be the loss of the family traditions, or um, how things used to be. That's kind of the same thing. But I think what you're already doing of practicing that gratitude, this is what we have, we have each other. Yes, we might not have all the things that, or all the spread that we would usually have during the year or previous years. So like being able to acknowledge that, and I think doing what you can with what you have, that can be a pretty difficult pill to swallow. So take your time with it, and also I hope that you can find like new traditions that make a lot of sense for you and your family. Yeah, I think that's what how I would answer that question. Is like, it's a huge time for grief and loss, and, being able to take that time to be gracious and giving yourself that time and space to be like, this really sucks. And, maybe this year wasn't that year for us to do all these things, but maybe next year. And you know what, we're gonna make the best out of what we have. So maybe instead of, taking an annual trip somewhere, you know, breaking out those board games, or, having a family movie night, um, whatever ways to, again, to make you feel comfortable, and also to not have to stretch yourself financially if you don't have the means to. You don't, and nor should we all feel the need to show up in a lot of ways by comparing ourselves, or even to our previous holidays.
Yeah, I love that. I love all that. Yeah. The idea of making new traditions that are less focused on material things and more focused on experiencing, just the joy of the season, and bonding with one another. I think sometimes the gift giving and the, what exactly is the perfect gift to give, or do I have the best spread, or, are we doing all the things that, people next door are doing, and the comparison can really get to us, right? And to know that it's really just the experience of bonding and being together, and making new traditions. Like Shirley said, that's a great thing to say. Maybe we do crafting this year, maybe we hang out in our PJs and we watch our favorite movies all day, and that's what we do. And we just order pizza, like, and it's like, our new tradition is pizza, jammy, movie, Christmas. And that may be the best Christmas you'll ever have, right? So just to be flexible in your understanding of what the holidays look like is so important in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for sharing, truly. Well, we're about out of time, so I think those are all the questions we have time for today. But I want to say thank you truly so much to you, Shirley and Stephanie, for your thoughtful conversations throughout the webinar. I think you've given everybody some really nice advice to, again, keep the holidays as joyous as they can be. So thank you again, and thank you to everybody who joined us today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, and taking time out of your really busy schedules. And I hope that this was helpful. And if you have any other questions, the Family Institute has lots of great resources, so please feel free to reach out.
Yes, please do. Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Happy holidays. Bye.